Yes, you read the title correctly. Today I will be ranking all the negative Soulsborne status effects. Yes, I'm being dead ass right now. Before I get into this list though, let me explain what these status effects are. These are the ailments that usually build up on the bottom of your screen. The most common types are poison and each game's version of toxic, whether it's rapid poisoning from Bloodborne or Scarlet Rot from Elden Ring. But there are a lot more. Another thing I wanted to add is that even if all games have the similar status effect that works in the same way, I will be ranking them as their own instead of one. If, for example, one game has way more enemies or areas that deals this ailment more compared to the others. But I will be ranking them as one if all the games treat said status effect in the same abundance. Okay, get it? Alright, enough bibble babble for now, and let's get right into the list. At number 15 we have Egghead. Like, who the fuck actually cares about this effect? I mean, I think you needed it for a quest or something, but other than that you can go through the whole of Dark Souls 1 without worrying about dying to Egghead ailment more than once. By the way, in order to get this, you yourself have to go out your way to fight these guys, so yeah, moving on. At number 14 we have Petrification from Dark Souls 2. I didn't even know this was a thing in Dark Souls 2 and I've played this game like 2 to 3 times. It's basically the same as Curse, as you instantly die and turn into a stone, I guess, but it never happened to me nor a lot of people, it seems, because I can barely find a video on it. Next up we have Bleed/Bloodloss. And for this particular infliction I'm going to be referring to Dark Souls 1 and Elden Ring. To be honest, apart from PvP, you should not have too much issue with this infliction. Like, who goes into Dark Souls 1 or Dark Souls 3 or Elden Ring playing offline and say, oh man, I hope I don't die from blood loss in a specific area? Like, no, you should be fine the whole game without dying to it. However, I can understand for Elden Ring as some NPC invaders can actually cause blood loss, but it is never something you have to really worry about, you know, playing through the whole game. At number 12 we have Frostbite from Elden Ring and Dark Souls 3. Like, who actually has a constant problem with this infliction? It's not like there's a crazy amount of enemies or whatever that does frost damage in either games. Honestly, the only enemies, or technically a boss, that gave me an issue with Frostbite was Sister Fried, and again, she was just a boss. But other than her, this one is probably one of the better ailments you can get in all the Souls games. At number 11 we have Deathblight from Elden Ring. This is pretty similar to Curse from Souls series, however I think there are a lot less enemies and items that inflicts this in Elden Ring compared to the other games. That's why it's this low on the list. However, as a status effect itself, it's pretty fucking bad. Like, you're telling me I can get insta-killed if the meter builds up, and for some reason it builds up like super fast as well, so yeah. Moving on to the other affliction, we have Rapid Poisoning from Bloodborne. The only time I really had a problem with this was with the Blood-Starved Beast, but other than that, I never really had a problem with this infliction throughout playing the rest of the game. However, don't get me wrong, I still hate this shit because of how fast it drains your health bar. Like, holy shit. Next up we have Slow Poisoning from Bloodborne. Honestly, I never really had a problem with poison in Bloodborne except when fighting the Blood-Starved Beast and also that one poison swamp area. But for the swamp, all you gotta do is stack up on some antidotes, which you can get for cheap at the shop, and also you have a fuck ton of blood vials, so you're pretty much good and don't have to worry too much about this ailment throughout playing the rest of the game, unless you're going to like the Chalice dungeons or some shit. And next we have a staple from the whole franchise, and that's Poison. This is basically the poster boy for all the status effects, at least the negative ones. You can't have a Soulsborne game without the infamous poison status effect. Like, come on now. Now I know you might be wondering why is this so high on the list, and the reason is because of the abundance of enemies, items, and even areas that inflicts this effect across all the games. While you may not worry about dying to blood loss or bleed when starting a new Souls games, one thing you do know is gonna happen is that you are most likely gonna die or almost die to poison a few times in the games. Even if you don't die, the sheer amount of poison infliction throughout all the Souls games is annoying enough to rank somewhat high on this list. Up next we have Madness from Elden Ring. See, this was kind of weird for me to rank because you don't get inflicted by this super often in the game. However, the times it does inflict you, it's super annoying. Like, I remember fighting Vike and I was just like super pissed off the whole time. Not only that, it's very similar to Frenzy from Bloodborne, but at least Frenzy doesn't knock you on the ground every time it fully builds up. Fuck Madness. That's it. Moving on, we have Curse. Honestly, this is one of the most annoying status effects in the Dark Souls series, especially Dark Souls 1. I mean, it's literally the same as Deathblight from Elden Ring, except that you will run into enemies and items that inflicts it more often in the Dark Souls series. And it literally insta-kills you, so yeah, that's why it's this high on the list. At number 5, we have Enfeebled from Sekiro. I remember it on my first playthrough. This was a nightmare ass infliction because it's basically like Curse, but instead of being insta kill, you basically become an old ass man and you move like slow as shit. So basically you're dead unless you slowly walk all the way back to the idol or you backstab one of the nobles who did it. But to this day, I'm still scared of this status effect. At number 4, we have Toxic from the Dark Souls series. To be honest, I barely got inflicted with Toxic. However, I do know that in Dark Souls 1 you get inflicted by it way more than the other games. But the reason why Toxic is so high is because it's basically poison on crack. It eats through your health bar like crazy, and usually the stuff you use to get rid of it isn't as common as the one for poison. At number 3, we have Frenzy. Fuck Frenzy, this is a bullshit ass status effect. I know I compared Madness to Frenzy and said that they were very similar, but you know what, at least with Madness, you at least know what's hitting you, causing it to build up, sometimes. But Frenzy is just bullshit because you don't know what's like hitting you to cause the frenzy, and even if you move away from the enemy causing this, the meter will still build up. Moving on to number 2, we have Terror from Sekiro. This is very similar to Curse from the Souls games, as it insta-kills you if it fully builds up. However, unlike Curse from Dark Souls, you encounter Terror a bit more often in my opinion. Remember these annoying ass guys? I swear, you encounter these guys so much, and they both have attacks that deal terror damage. So yeah, fuck Terror and these stupid ass guys, I guess. I don't know. No, finally at number 1, we have Scarlet Rot from Elden Ring. I mean, a lot of you guys probably know this was gonna be here. The Scarlet Rot buildup is basically the same as Toxic buildup from the Soul series because it's, again, basically poison on crack. But the difference between this and Toxic is that you encounter Scarlet Rot a lot more often in Elden Ring compared to the Toxic in other games. And I say this because in other games there weren't no such things as a Toxic Swamp. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't remember like going through a Toxic Swamp. I know a Poison Swamp, but not Toxic Swamp. And in Elden Ring, you literally have a bunch of Scarlet Rot swamps just littered around the area. And it's like, what? Not only that, but there are enemies that deal Scarlet Rot buildup and some traps that do it as well. But what makes it worse is that one of the hardest, if not the hardest boss in the game literally inflicts the status effect on you. So yeah, that was the end of the video. I really enjoyed making this video, and I don't know, basically that's it. If you have any more ideas, for a future video, you can drop them down in the comment section. I don't really care. I already have some planned, but I always like to look at other people's, suggestions and see what I can make or what I can change around and stuff like that. That's the end of the video. Love y'all.